At Starbound, we tell stories the human way, not with artificial voices or AI slop. In the end, what's HFY without humanity? Subscribe to keep it this way. My name's Stolarski. Let's begin.
Javier Costa stood at the compact chamber's center. 1,000 judging gazes pressed on him, a pressure he found pleasant. The chamber, an amphitheater carved from a single gravitationally stabilized steroid, showcased masterful engineering. Tiers of delegate pods floated in silent, concentric rings around the central dais, each a bubble of bespoke atmosphere and competing agendas. Before him, the Rylak Ascendancy's emissary Dresh stood rigidly still. Dresh was a magnificent example of his species, a towering hexapod with a segmented exoshell built for high-gravity environments. The chamber's ambient light gleamed in oiled bronze on his hardened plating. He crossed his two heavy primary forelimbs over a thorax broad enough to land a shuttle on. He kept his two smaller, multi-jointed manipulator limbs retracted within recessed grooves, a gesture of formal contempt.
"Know this,"
Dresh thrummed, his deep voice vibrating through the dais, a pressure felt in the bones. He spoke with deliberation, holding a data wafer aloft, its surface displaying verification glyphs, authenticating the document.
"That, as of this session's commencement, the Terran Federation, through its reckless disregard for established trade covenants and its insult to the Ascendancy's honor in the Corvus threshold tariffs, has committed an act of intolerable aggression."
A murmur rippled through the delegate pods. Javi kept his face neutral, resting his hands at the small of his back. He'd read the official grievance over a tariff on refined helium-3, the galactic equivalent of raising a city over a spilled drink.
"Therefore,"
Dresh's thrum dropped to a register of solemn finality,
"invoking the Articles of Martial Recourse, the Rylak Ascendancy does hereby issue a declaration of total hostility against the Terran Federation and all its holdings. Let the celestial record show that diplomacy has collapsed. Let it show that the consequences rest upon the human aggressors' heads."
The murmur died. The low hum of life support filled the silence. War, to the Stellar Compact's ancient members, represented a failure of protocol conducted with solemn rituals of regret. They expected the human, the upstart representative from Sol, to plead, to bargain, to show the appropriate shock and fear. Javi Costa broke decorum with a wide, genuine grin. The grin shattered the room's solemnity. Several delegates recoiled. Emissary Dresh's resonating plates went slack. His composure cracked for a fraction of a second. Javi turned to his side, Zia Solanki, a sharp young woman, her expression serene, though she stood with a poised stillness that promised sudden action.
"Zia, the console, if you would."
She produced a thin data wafer from her attaché case and handed it to him. Javi turned back to the stunned Rylak emissary, his grin softening into a polite, professional smile.
"On the Terran Federation's behalf,"
Javi said, his calm baritone cutting through the chamber's hush,
"I formally accept your declaration of total hostility."
He tapped a sequence on the console with practiced speed.
"Now, to ensure all the paperwork is in order, I have one question for you, emissary."
Dresh stared, his fine manipulator limbs twitching within their recessed grooves.
"Question?"
he rumbled, the word ill-formed.
"Yes,"
Javi said, holding up the data wafer so the Rylak could see the authentication glyphs.
"Under the mutually agreed-upon combat resolution protocols,
specifically Compact Statute 83 Delta. Both parties must acknowledge the commencement of hostilities for the record. Just tell me where you need me to sign. Operation Budget Approval is a go, then? Sana G spoke in staccato bursts of energy from the holographic projector on Javi's desk. Her hologram, a compact woman with an observant gaze, flickered, already dressed in the stark, high-collared jacket she favored for managing crises, which, for Sana, was every day. Javi loosened his tie as he strode into his office, the doors sliding shut behind him. Zia and his junior staff followed, their faces pale, eyes wide. It is. Javi sank into his chair. The Rylaks just gave us everything we needed. Zia stepped forward, twisting a stylus in her hand. Sir, with respect, they gave us a declaration of war. Their fleet outmasses ours 3-1. Their martial tradition is millennia old. Are we celebrating this? Javi leaned back, forming a steeple with his fingers. He looked at the young, tense faces staring back at him and softened his tone. We are. For the past 3 years, the Terran Finance Committee has held the Sledgehammer Array's final 10% of funding hostage. Some bright spark named Councillor Merrick inserted a legislative rider, Clause 1138, stipulating that the final funding tranche for full activation and operational maintenance required a successful live-fire combat evaluation against a declared hostile entity before its release. He gestured to the shimmering star charts on his wall. The clause was a legislative shiv, a clever bit of political maneuvering to defund our single greatest deterrent without a vote against planetary defense. The compact is too civilized, too slow. Declarations of war were relics. Merrick figured the array would rust on the moon, a half-finished project, until decommissioning. What the Rylaks just did, they fulfilled the legal requirement. He swiveled his chair to his desk console and tapped a sequence of commands. A secure channel opened. This is Costa. Authorize Signal Omega. Confirm with Terran Finance our compliance with Clause 1138. I want the entire Sledgehammer budget released and transferred to Lunar Operations Command, effective immediately. And tell them I want Appendix C-12 fully funded and activated on my mark. I expect immediate compliance. He cut the channel and turned back to Sana's hologram. Well? Activating the Rylak contingency file, Javi boy, she said, her fingers typing across a virtual keyboard, data streams scrolling past her. I've drafted the first press release. Terran Federation regretfully accepts Rylak challenge, pledges swift and humane resolution. Press release 2. Humanity invokes right to self-defense under compact law. I'm framing this whole thing as a public safety demonstration, a controlled live-fire event. I'm taking the war out of it, turning it into a technology debut. A technology debut? Zia asked. The best kind, Sana chirped. The kind where the competition sees exactly why competing is a terminal mistake. I'm already selling exclusive broadcast rights. I have a short list of embedded journalists ready to invite. Our operations will be transparent, she smirked. The list's top name is Ashan Varr. Javi nodded in appreciation. The Rylak's top investigative reporter. Bold. It's the only way to play it, Sana said. We let her see everything. We give her the best seat in the house. We want this truth to come from a Rylak voice. It'll hit them harder. Her smile faded. One other thing. Filing under 83 Delta automatically flags the Navigational Safety Commission. It's a procedural failsafe. We can expect an auditor en route by the time the first shot flies. We'll need to be ready for a full review of legal and environmental compliance.
Let's manage one crisis at a time, Sana, Javi said. First, let's show them the fireworks. Then we can worry about cleaning up the mess. Ashan Varr kept her deep bronze exoshell polished to a practical matte finish. She was smaller than most Rylak warriors, a trait that made her feel like an observer among her own people, a role she embraced. Her quick, direct movements often put more ponderous individuals on the defensive. Her editor, a grizzled old male named Orson, summoned her to his office. With him stood Admiral Kell, the Rylak Third Fleet's commander, a being whose sheer bulk filled the room. He held his primary manipulator limbs rigidly at his sides. His plating shimmered like cooling magma. The humans have accepted. Pell's resonant thrum rumbled with contempt. The fools walk to their own execution. Your assignment, Ashan, Orson said, is to document this historic moment. I'm embedding you with the human diplomatic convoy. Admiral Pell's fleet will provide escort and resolution. Pell scoffed, a dry rasp of articulated plates shifting. We offered them this journalist's presence as a sign of our magnanimity. Let a Rylak record their surrender for our archives. He looked down at Ashan, dismissing her with a glance. Stay out of the way. Observe their pathetic attempts at defiance. Report on their inevitable collapse. This'll be a short assignment. She first met Javier Costa aboard his diplomatic vessel, the TCS Wellington. The ship was Spartan, functional. She expected a barbarian eager for battle, draped in military finery. She found a calm, almost professorial man who offered her a seat and a drink, a simple cup of water, as if they were meeting to discuss trade regulations. I appreciate you joining us, Miss Varr, Javi said. We believe in transparency, and frankly, we want the Rylak people to see this for themselves, with the raw truth intact. Ashan activated her recorder, the soft chime echoing in the quiet briefing room. Envoy Costa, your government has accepted a declaration of war from a superior military power over a minor tariff dispute. Many in the Compact are calling this an act of profound self-destruction. How do you respond? We call it a necessary expenditure, Javi replied, his posture open and confident. Think of it as a line item in our planetary security budget. Sometimes you have to spend a little to save a lot. She pressed him for details about humanity's strategy, their fleet dispositions, their rumored wonder weapons. He answered every pointed question, speaking of safety protocols, orbital mechanics, and optimal energy states instead of tactics. His calm pragmatism unsettled her. Her culture expected martial fury before a war. He spoke like an engineer outlining a dam demolition. The interview concluded. Javi walked her to the airlock. As the door cycled, he paused. A piece of professional advice, Miss Varr, he said, his expression sharpened. You'll have the prime observer position in the designated safe zone. I've made sure of it. Once the event begins, monitor your ship's particle density readings. He leaned a little closer. And advise your ship's captain to double-check the calibration on their point defense grid. Tell them to set the targeting parameters to track objects with a mass between 1 and 10 kilograms. Just a precaution. The cryptic advice raised the fine sensory hairs along her forelimbs. This man expected to win. He worried about splash damage. The Tiffin 12 system was a gravitational dead zone, a remote K-type star orbited by gas giants and a belt of raw, unexploited planetoids. The system's isolation provided the perfect stage. The Rylak battle fleet punched through space-time in a series of silent, violent ruptures. Dozens of warships, brutalist wedges of armor and weaponry, emerged from their wormhole transits and arranged themselves in a threatening crescent around the system's innermost planetoid. The flagship, the Ascendancy's Wrath, a kilometer-long Titan, mounted an arsenal of plasma cannons and kinetic launchers on its hull. Aboard the TCS Wellington, Javi watched the display in the holotank. The Rylak vectors shone as bright red lines that trailed angry comet tails of projected fire across the battle space. His own ship, and Ashan Varr's media vessel, appeared as tiny blue icons tucked into a Lagrange point, a designated safe distance away. A communication request chimed. Admiral Pell's image materialized above the holotank. His upper manipulator limbs flared wide.
Envoy Costa,
Pell's resonant thrum filled the bridge.
You see our strength. The Ascendancy's might arrays against you. This is your final opportunity. Surrender your vessel and your person unconditionally, and we may yet spare your homeworld the consequences of your folly. The entire galaxy will see you break.
The broadcast fed live to the stellar compact. 1 billion beings watched. Javi glanced at the chronometer ticking down in the display's corner. Sledgehammer entered its optimal firing window. His lips curved into a slow, predatory smile. He keyed his comms, a direct, encrypted channel to a facility buried deep in Shackleton Crater on Earth's moon. Luna Control, this is Costa. Threat posture confirmed. Final authorization is green. Execute on my mark. A calm, female voice answered. Copy that, Wellington. Luna Control is green across the board. Standing by for your mark. Javi opened a direct channel to Pell's flagship. He spoke in a steady, conversational tone. The time is now, Admiral. A beat of static. Then Pell's thrum crackled with rage at the human's audacity.
Humans want this?
Javi looked at the Admiral's snarling hologram, then at the fleet arrayed against him. He considered his species' history of struggle and defiance. That weight settled on his shoulders, a familiar mantle. Yes. Deep beneath the lunar surface, the Sledgehammer control center hummed with its crew's quiet focus. Humanity designed it to resemble a planetary science mission control, a space filled with engineers and physicists rather than soldiers. The massive central screen showed a web of telemetry data, orbital diagrams, and power conduits, all rendered in cool blues and greens. Only the icon for the confirmed hostile fleet glowed red on the board, a distant and abstract threat. Director Kenji Ito, a man with a placid demeanor and a mind that saw orbital trajectories as intuitive, flowing lines, presided over the operations floor. His calm murmur steadied the crew. Propulsion, confirm energy charge state. Charge state is nominal at 100%, Director. Capacitors are green. Guidance, confirm final trajectory solution. Trajectory solution locked. We are go for Tiffin 12, center mass. Interlocks, final safety check. Safety's disengaged. Firing authority rests with you, Director. The board is yours. At her console, Alina Orlova, a junior technician on her first live fire sequence, felt a tremor in her hands just above the plasma screen. She was 24 years old. The system's weight under her command felt immense. Her supervisor, a woman with graying hair named Maria, slid a cup of coffee onto the console beside her. Breathe, Alina, Maria said, without looking away from her own board. We've run this sim 412 times. You know this sequence better than your own name. The system has triple redundancy. The trajectory is solid. Just trust the models. We've proven them. Alina took a shaky breath, then another. The trembling stopped. She nodded, her focus returning like a sharpened lens. Director Ito watched the countdown clock hit 0. Execute, he said. At the fire control station, 2 operators turned their authorization keys in unison. A green light illuminated a single guarded stud. The primary officer pressed it, closing the final circuit. Only the control center's hum broke the silence. A flow of green telemetry on the main screen gave the only indication of action. 24 status indicators flipped from standby to launched. On the moon's surface, within 24 different craters, massive electromagnetic rails, kilometers long, surged with power. 24 projectiles-dense cylinders of braided tungsten, each the size of a grain silo, nicknamed hammers, accelerated from a dead stop to a tenth of light speed in less than a second. They departed in utter silence, dark needles threading the void. The shot was away. Travel time to target, 38 minutes. Aboard the Wellington, Javi instructed his communications officer to open a channel back to Admiral Pell. "Admiral," Javi said cheerily, "while we wait, could you settle a debate we've been having on the bridge? Is it true Rylak composers originally created the epics of Dresh the Great as percussive poems for drumming out on a rival's plating?" Pell's hologram stared back, his whole posture tightened with disbelief. "That is classified cultural information," he grunted. "Fascinating," Javi mused. "You know, it reminds me of old Terran sea shanties. Entirely different purpose, of course, but the rhythmic imperative is the same. It speaks to a universal truth about..." He talked on, his tone a soothing, infuriating drone, discussing the weather on Terra, the philosophical implications of wormhole travel, and the challenges of brewing a good cup of coffee in zero-G. Pell's replies grew shorter, clipped. Stress lines appeared along his exoshell's joints. Javi treated the entire military confrontation as a tedious delay before a business meeting. On her media vessel, the Truth's Witness, Ashan Varr reported live, her voice even and her phrasing direct. She described the Rylak fleet's overwhelming force, the lone human diplomatic ship's calm defiance. She relayed Javi's conversation with the Admiral. Her military analysts, piped in from the Rylak homeworld, sounded baffled. They speculated about a new type of electronic warfare, some psychological trick, a hidden energy weapon. The possibility that the humans were waiting defied their tactical models. Then, Sana G's broadcast cut into every public channel across the compact. She appeared, professional and confident, from a studio on Earth. "A good session to all our viewers across the stellar compact," she said, her voice crisp. "For those of you just joining us, you're watching the Terran Federation conduct a profound commitment to stability and deterrence, demonstrated through a legally mandated safety test of its primary planetary defense system." A polished media package played, showing the Sledgehammer project's history. Animated graphics detailed the physics of kinetic impact. Interviews with smiling, confident engineers talked about safety protocols and fail-safes. The presentation framed the weapon as a marvel of engineering, a tool designed to ensure peace. She sold the weapon before it even hit its target, defining the narrative on her own terms. She ended the segment with a pleasant sign-off. "We believe in deterrent through a show of force that targets infrastructure, preserving life. We now return you to our live coverage of the demonstration." The first sign flickered on Ashan's sensor board, a proximity alert. She zoomed in on the telemetry. 24 distinct signatures, closing on Tiffin 12. Their velocity vector appeared as a near vertical line on the display. The signatures showed cold, inert masses. "Sensors, report!" the Rylak captain on her ship's bridge snapped. "Multiple inbound contacts! High velocity!" the sensor officer replied, his voice tight with alarm. "Purely kinetic signatures, cold and inert." On the main view screen, the moonlet Tiffin 12 hung in space, a pockmarked gray sphere. It existed for 4 billion years. Its existence would end in the next 3 seconds. The hammers arrived. In the vacuum silence, the impact vibrated sympathetically through the deck plates of Ashan's ship. The first hammer struck the moonlet's northern pole. The rock collapsed inward, the kinetic energy delivered in a single catastrophic instant, turning the moonlet's core into superheated plasma. A fraction of a second later, the other 23 hammers struck in a calculated pattern across the moonlet's surface. A web of incandescent white cracks spiderwebbed across Tiffin 12 in a blink. For a heart-stopping moment, It resembled a shattered marble, held together by sheer inertia. Then it blossomed. The moonlet erupted into a massive, expanding cloud of vaporized rock, molten slag, and trillions upon trillions of shattered fragments. The impacts disassembled the moonlet, unmaking its matter. A new asteroid belt formed where a moon once orbited. The broadcast channels went to static. Across the galaxy, a billion beings stared at their screens in stunned silence. Aboard the Truth's Witness, Ashan Varr could only whisper a single, horrified phrase. "By the Founders!" A strangled sound broke the silence on the Rylak command channel. The sound came from Admiral Kell. His composure gone, he bellowed orders, his thrum raw with fury and a dawning understanding. Physically, his fleet was pristine, but the meaning of what he witnessed settled over his bridge. The humans brought a geological event to a fight. Aboard the Ascendancy's Wrath, the holographic battlespace, once a clean projection, flared with a million new contacts.
Report!
Pell roared.
"Debris cloud, the moonlet. It's expanding on a direct intercept course without a position."
The tactical officer's voice hitched.
"Impact warnings across the fleet. Mass readings are low, mostly small fragments, but the velocity is extreme."
A high-pitched ringing sound filled the bridge, then another, and another, until it became a constant, percussive roar. The fleet's point defense systems, state-of-the-art laser and kinetic cannons, fired into the approaching cloud. Streams of coherent light and flak rounds shredded the larger pieces of rock, but for every one they destroyed, 1,000 smaller ones followed. The debris cloud, its trajectory calculated by the humans weeks before, washed over the Rylak fleet. Cosmic sandblasting scoured their ships. The ship's powerful shields flared, deflecting every individual impact, but the sheer volume of micro-impacts overwhelmed them. Shield generators whined as they burned energy at an alarming rate. Pebble-sized projectiles moving at kilometers per second pitted and scored hull plates designed to withstand capital ship weaponry. Dust and pebbles abraded sensor arrays and pitted viewports. "Shields on the Vindicator down to 40%, a damage control officer yelled. "The Iron Wheel reports microfractures on its primary heat exchangers." Pell watched his fleet dismantled by the ghost of a dead moon. The cloud, an absolute and overwhelming foe, rendered his fleet helpless. Retreat became their only option. "All ships," he bit out, the words like grit in his mouth. "Emergency withdrawal. Get us out of here, now!" As the Rylak warships turned, their engines straining to pull them out of the lethal cloud, one final communication came through. The transmission came from Javier Costa, his voice as calm and polite as a public service announcement. "Admiral Pell, per compact navigational safety regulations, I must inform you that you've entered a hazardous debris field. We project this sector will remain hazardous for orbital transit for approximately the next 100 Terran years. We strongly recommend immediate withdrawal to a safe distance. The Terran Federation thanks you for your participation in this security demonstration." The channel clicked off. The Rylak fleet, its pristine armor scarred and pitted, jumped to FTL, leaving behind a silent, expanding tombstone for a moon, and for their own arrogance. Cheers echoed in the TCS Wellington's briefing room. Javi and his team watched the last Rylak FTL signature fade from the holographic projection. Zia laughed, a sound sharp with relief. The junior staff cheered and shook hands. Sana's hologram appeared. She wore a triumphant smirk. "The shortest war in galactic history," she declared. "Total duration, 38 minutes of travel time, 90 seconds of sandblasting. Both sides emerged without a single casualty. Finance confirmed the full budget release. Councillor Merrick has apparently locked himself in his office and refuses all contact." Public data streams flooded with satirical pictograms and looping vids. The shattered moon, with the caption, "Humanity's opening statement." Admiral Pell's enraged face photoshopped onto the body of a small, yapping canine. Their victory rewrote the narrative. Earth became the quiet neighbor
with an enormous dog. A proximity alert cut their celebration short. A vessel approached on a standard diplomatic vector. The ship was a long, slender, compact vessel, colored the muted gray of official business. "Incoming vessel," the comms officer announced. "It's the steward, registered to the Stellar Compact's Environmental and Navigational Safety Commission. They're hailing us." Javi's smile faded. He straightened, on guard. On screen. The screen showed a Varren. He was tall and willowy, with smooth ash-gray skin. Large pleated membranes flared from the sides of his head, sensing subtle shifts in air pressure and vibration, giving him an uncanny, still presence. His eyes were small and milky, almost vestigial. "I am Senior Auditor Idris Kell," the Varren said. He spoke in a low, formal tone, a soft, resonant hum that dampened the room's sound. "Envoy Costa, pursuant to the Cosmic Commons Treaty, Article 9, Section 4, I am here to inform you that the Terran Federation faces formal investigation for the willful creation of a long-term, wide-area navigational hazard." A cold weight settled in Javi's gut. The gravity of Sana's warning returned. Idris Kell regarded him with an impassive gaze. "I am impounding all sensor logs, telemetry data, and mission records related to this demonstration. I am also placing the Sledgehammer array under compact review pending my investigation's outcome. The hostilities have ended, Mr. Costa. Your legal troubles are just beginning." Idris Kell worked in silence. In his office aboard the Steward, he reviewed the data from the Tiffin 12 impact. Holographic displays bloomed around him, silent battles of orbital mechanics and particle distribution models. The data showed billions of tons of debris, a lethal ghost swarm scattered across primary transit lanes, a navigational hazard that would persist for a century. His face remained impassive, but a minute muscle in his long, slender neck twitched. His aide, a young Kelpian named Nomi, entered the room, her articulated footsteps a soft chime in the silence. "The preliminary models are complete, Auditor." Idris remained facing the holograms. "And?" "Worse than we projected," Nomi said. "The debris field is destabilizing Tiffin 13's orbit. In 50 years, it will likely begin to break apart as well, causing a chain reaction. The entire system will become a forbidden zone." Idris turned away from the holograms, his gaze distant. "A shell of shrapnel around a world. I have seen this before." "Varania," Nomi said in a low voice. "Yes," Idris whispered. "My homeworld had a sky filled with lights, orbital habitats, manufactories, transit stations. A generation ago, a miscalculated asteroid mining operation went wrong. It created a chain reaction. Debris struck a habitat, creating more debris. That debris struck a station. Within a day, our orbital infrastructure crumbled into a lethal shell of shrapnel around our planet. It took us 80 years to launch a ship again. 80 years of darkness." He turned back to the display of Tiffin 12's remnants. "I vowed to ensure other species would avoid our fate, be it through malice or the arrogance of playing with geological forces they believe they control." He straightened his posture. "Draft the formal charges," Idris commanded. "Gross cosmic negligence, willful environmental vandalism, reckless endangerment of galactic commons. We will make an example of these humans. We will show the galaxy the consequences of defiling the commons." "A debris field is a hard fact to spin, Javi," Sana said, pacing their legal strategy room on the compact station. "It's a physical fact, beyond narrative or opinion. A giant cloud of 'we broke it' will hang there for 100 years. Kell will have our hides for it." Javi sat at the conference table's head, surrounded by an agitated team of Terran lawyers. He listened to them, letting the anxious murmurs fill the room. Then he cleared his throat. The murmurs stopped. Pull up the full project file for Sledgehammer, he said to Zia. I want everything. Engineering specs, budget proposals, risk assessments. Everything. A lawyer interjected. Envoy, we've been over it. The files are useless to our defense. You missed something, Javi said, holding up a hand. Specifically, I want Appendix C12. The file's title is Long-Term Debris Mitigation and Remediation Strategy. The room fell silent again. Sana stopped pacing and stared at him. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. Javi, you magnificent creature. You planned for this. The finance committee that tried to kill Sledgehammer was a stickler for environmental impact reports, Javi said with a shrug. We accounted for every possible outcome. The budget included the plan. His private comms unit chimed. He glanced at the caller ID, Ashan Varr. He excused himself and took the call in his office. Her holographic image appeared. Her exoshell seemed duller, and she held herself rigidly. Envoy, she said, her voice a low, formal cadence. They've recalled me. Admiral Kell has classified my raw data feeds from the event and ordered their seizure. He intends to rewrite the official record. And you refused? Javi asked. I am a journalist, she said, defiance sparking in her eyes. My duty is to the truth above the Ascendancy's pride. I've secured my unredacted recordings, the full telemetry. She looked at him directly. They show the Ascendancy's wrath powering up its primary plasma cannons 3 minutes before your weapon impacted. They prepared to fire on your vessel. They planned a first strike. I'm facing treason charges, Ashan continued, her voice unwavering. My career, perhaps my life, is forfeit, but the full story must emerge. I'm transmitting the data to you now. Use it. The data packet arrived, a silent confirmation. He looked at the brave Rylak reporter's hologram, a journalist sacrificing everything for a principle. Thank you, Ashan, he said, the words feeling thin. We will remember your courage. This is a professional courtesy, Envoy, she replied, a soft clicking sound coming from her throat as she gathered her thoughts. To the truth. The tribunal began. The compact chamber, once a stage for a declaration of war, became a courtroom. Idris Kell stood on the central dais. His calm posture conveyed righteous authority. He laid out his case, presenting one piece of evidence after another. He showed holographic displays of the projected debris cloud, a swirling vortex of red danger zones overlaying major trade routes. He highlighted the decades-long hazard, the cost of rerouting traffic, the risk of a catastrophic chain reaction. He played audio recordings of civilian pilots, their voices crackling with stress as their ship's computers warned them away from the new, human-made nebula. Novel navigation hazard, one pilot reported. Origin, Terran military exercise. Damn fools. Then, Idris addressed Principal. The sky is a shared commons, he said, his soft voice filling the vast chamber. It's a sacred trust between all spacefaring peoples. We have a duty to leave it as we found it, to treat it with respect. The Terrans, in their youthful arrogance, violated this trust. They've treated the cosmos as their private firing range, their celestial junkyard. We must hold them accountable. Nods of agreement rippled through the older race's delegates. The sentiment in the chamber turned against Earth. When he finished, the chamber settled into silence. The three judges, a triumvirate of ancient respected beings, turned their collective gaze to Javier Costa.
Envoy Costa, the chief judge intoned, you may present your defense.
Javi rose from his seat. He walked to the dais' center, standing a few feet from Idris. He offered the auditor a small, polite smile. Thank you, judges, he said, and thank you, Auditor Kell. You make some excellent points. In fact, your presentation serves as a perfect introduction to our own. Let's begin with the context of this act of environmental vandalism, Javi said. A new holographic display bloomed beside him, showing the tactical situation in the Tiffin 12 system moments before impact. Auditor Kell has described a reckless species. I will present an alternative, a species acting in calculated self-defense. He gestured to the display. This is unredacted telemetry from the Rylak fleet, provided by the journalist Ashan Varr at great personal risk. The display zoomed in on the Ascendancy's wrath. Energy signatures flared to life, showing its main plasma cannons charging to full power. A targeting solution appeared, locking on to the TCS Wellington. The Rylaks were seconds away from launching an unprovoked, full-scale attack on our diplomatic vessel, Javi said coolly. The Sledgehammer shot was a preemptive defensive measure, a fully legal act under Compact Statute 42J, the right of anticipatory self-defense. A shocked murmur passed through the chamber. The Rylak delegate leaped to his feet, sputtering denials, but the data was absolute. But that is the context, Javi continued, dismissing the Rylak's outburst with a wave of his hand. The auditor's primary charge is negligence regarding the debris. He is right. Creating such a hazard is an act of profound irresponsibility. He paused. If we had failed to plan for it. He signaled to Zia. Please bring up Sledgehammer project file, Appendix C12. A new document appeared, hundreds of pages long, filled with complex charts, budgets, and engineering schematics. Appendix C12, Long-Term Debris Mitigation and Remediation Strategy, Javi announced. You see, we chose Tiffin 12 for a specific reason. Its composition, its mass, its orbital path. We calculated the impact down to the last kilogram of force. We knew exactly what the debris field would look like because we designed it. We specifically chose an orbit that, while disruptive in the short term, would allow the debris to decay over the next century into a harmless and stable planetary ring. He brought up a new image. It showed a fleet of sleek automated vessels. Meet the Terran Janitor Fleet, automated remnant collectors. They're already en route to the Tiffin system. Their mission, fully funded for the next 100 years as part of the Sledgehammer project's operational budget, is to manage the debris field. They will nudge larger pieces into safer orbits, deorbit hazardous fragments, and generally act as celestial shepherds for our mess. We planned the cleanup with the same care that we planned the explosion. The chamber watched him, silent. Javi stepped back and nodded to Sana, who strode forward. She brought up a cost-benefit analysis, a flurry of charts and figures that made the Rylak tariff dispute look insignificant. The total operational budget for the janitor fleet's century-long mission, she said, her voice sharp and clinical, comes to approximately 1/20th the projected cost of rebuilding Earth's primary infrastructure after the bombardment Admiral Kell nearly unleashed. We consider it a bargain. She smiled sweetly at the judges, then at Idris Kell. The Terran Federation takes our responsibility to the Cosmic Commons seriously. So seriously, in fact, that we developed a new suite of predictive remnant field modeling software for these calculations. We will gladly license the software to the Compact free of charge to help prevent future incidents like the one that befell Verania. She looked directly at Idris, her smile widening. In fact, in recognition of his tireless dedication to navigational safety, we propose to name it the Idris Kell Early Warning System. The tribunal was silent, the three judges staring. The judges ruled in Earth's favor on all counts. They formally censured the Rylak Ascendancy for its planned aggression and the subsequent cover-up attempt. The Compact officially recognized the Sledgehammer Array as a legal and terrifying planetary defense platform. After the verdict's reading, as the chamber erupted in a buzz of conversation, Idris Kell approached Javi. He moved without a sound, his gray form materializing at Javi's elbow. For a long moment, he stood there, observing the human diplomat who dismantled his case. Your species is terrifying, Mr. Costa, Idris said, his voice a low, private hum that conveyed profound, weary awe. You build more than weapons. You build the laws that allow them, the budgets that sustain them, and the cleanup crews to tidy up after them. You treat foresight as a line item in a budget. Javi met his gaze. We have to. We've only got one planet. It's a rental. We like to keep it tidy. Idris gave a single, slow nod. He turned and walked away. As Javi watched him go, the expressions on the other delegates' faces had changed. He was now the representative of a new kind of power, one that weaponized physics and firepower alongside paperwork, planning, and public relations. Sana G stood at the podium, a predator among prey. Reporters from every major compact species packed the press conference, their voices a cacophony of questions. Sana was in her element. She was generous in her victory. The Terran Federation is pleased with the Tribunal's ruling, she said, projecting calm authority. We see this as a successful test of the Compact's legal framework. To that end, we'll be hosting joint debris management exercises with the Compact Safety Commission, and we are opening up several technology exchange programs to all Compact members. She turned a military triumph into a diplomatic one, extending an open hand that held an implicit warning. We can be your best friend, or your worst enemy. Choose wisely. A young Rylak reporter with twitching manipulator limbs pushed his way to the front. Miss G, what is your government's position on the traitor Ashan Varr? Sana kept her smile fixed. The Terran Federation considers a journalist who reports the truth a hero. We consider her a hero. In fact, we believe a free and honest press is the cornerstone of any advanced society. She leaned into the microphone. And so, I will take this opportunity live on this broadcast to offer Miss Varr political asylum and a senior position at the Terran News Collective, should she accept. She let that statement settle in the room before continuing. In closing, she said, the Terran Federation is pleased to announce that the Tiffin system, after its successful preparation, is now officially the SOL-certified long-range deterrence testing range. Approved allied nations can now book time on the range to test their own defensive hardware against a variety of celestial targets. She gave them a bright, corporate smile. A full schedule of fees and services is available on our public data network. Thank you. Humanity did more than win a war. They turned it into a business venture. Javi stood in the Shackleton Crater Observatory's darkened dome, a silent figure before a vast, armored glass window. Below and beyond, Earth's brilliant curve, a swirl of blue and white, rose over the lunar horizon. The sight always centered him. His private comms chimed. He answered. Ashan Varr's face appeared, small and private in the corner of his vision. She was in a quiet, safe room. She'd accepted the offer. I saw the press conference, she said. Sana G embraces directness. That's just her way, Javi chuckled. How are you? I am a refuge, she admitted. But I am alive, and I'm free to report. For that, I thank you. A moment of silence passed between them, filled with unstated complications. A human diplomat and a Rylak refugee journalist. The political optics were a challenge, and they both knew it. Our duties come first, he said. They always do, she agreed. Be well, Javier Costa. You too, Ashan Varr. The connection ended. The observatory door hissed open, and Sana joined him at the window. They stood together for a long time, watching the Earth rise, a fragile marble in the infinite black. They won. Sledgehammer was secure. Earth was safe. The galaxy now knew to respect humanity's boundaries. But their victory had a price tag. A chore list a century long. A fleet of robotic janitors was on its way to a system that was obscure a week ago to begin the longest, most expensive cleanup project in history. Javi sighed, the future's weight settling on him. Then a slow smile spread across his face. Well, he said, turning to Sana, at least it's a union job. She snorted, a rare, genuine laugh that echoed in the quiet dome. They stood there together, watching their world rise, basking in the glow of a triumphant and pragmatic responsibility.